This is Stephanie Davenport during a follow-up meeting with Mr. Forrest May. We do have an established relationship. Even though we do have an established relationship, I am going to do our professional code of ethics disclaimer to let him know that this is everything you do say to me is in confidence. But if you do talk about harming yourself or harming others, I do have to mandatory report it. So just to let you know that,
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I understand.
Okay, Mr. May. So the last time, we met, I know you were very upset about your ex-wife and your kids, moving out of state with, your wife's new husband, and you were talking about going off of your medication and kind of throwing in the towel. So how are you feeling this week?
Well, Stephanie, it's been really difficult. I know I've made a lot of mistakes, and I definitely damaged the relationship that caused my wife to leave me and remarry.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's always been about the girls. Whatever my wife and I, whatever problems we had, I always felt that that was just between she and I wasn't trying to let that overflow into the relationship I had with my daughters. It's
Okay.
I know I was, like I said, made a bunch of mistakes before, turned around here, and now here within the last month or so, it seems like we're really getting back on track. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it seems that here it is, life is just kicking me once again, kicking me down once again, because the relationship has improved with my
Yes.
daughters.
Yes, that's very good.
Um, but now they're leaving, and I mean, I know maybe it'll sound a little selfish, on my part, but I really don't want them to go. I even went as far as I contacted my lawyer to see if there's anything that I could do, to stop them,
Uh-huh.
from leaving. But it's my money is extremely tight, now, and I just don't have enough money to sustain it. Plus, I knew that was just more the anger talking at that point,
Okay.
and so I wanted, I said, well, let me be realistic about all this, and if they're going to leave, no, I'm not going to like it, but I'm not too sure what I'm going to do once they are gone. I mean, the job's okay, but I'm thinking about quitting it anyway.
Mm.
And this medication, I'm tired. I'm really, really tired of taking these pills. They, my physician says, well, you got this bipolar thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that that's really true anymore, because the relationship between myself and my daughters has improved so much. And to keep taking this medication, I mean, after they're gone, what's going to be the point? Why should I even continue? What's left for me to do? I mean, I'm on the verge of just giving up. I mean, goodness, this is, I don't know. I'm at wit's end. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I am sorry that you feel that way and that you're in that mind state of giving up. But what I do want to advise you that if you would just stop taking your medication, don't you foresee some things unraveling or maybe going back to the way they were before? Yeah.
Well, again, with that, if my children aren't here, my ex-wife is off with her new husband, and they're going to be in another state. I mean, I can't see, because that was mainly the problem with, it was with my ex-wife and
Mm-hmm.
and these mistakes that I was making with her, and I kind of got a little verbally abusive with her and everything. But she's not going to be here. Again, this is what I'm trying to say. If I stop taking the medication, it's there's nobody else here, let's say, to take it out on like it was before. So I'm just trying to come to, how can I say, a decision if I should stop taking it, because you know, there's not going to be anybody else here. There's nobody else in my life. I'm not trying to see anybody else. And I miss these girls when they go. Something terrible. So, I don't know. I'm just, I'm at wit's end. I'm at wit's end. I probably will stop taking, the medication. Because for what? I mean, what do I need to be stable for?
Well, wouldn't you still, I know you would still love to have a relationship with your daughters, even though they are going to be moving across the country, since you did inform me that they're moving to North Carolina.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, so would it be feasible for you and your ex-wife to work out a visiting schedule? Because I'm sure she doesn't want you to stop being in their life.
Well, so far, if that's true, then that's pretty good. We could, sit back and talk about that. But so far, she hasn't brought that up. It's a fact that she's just leaving. You know, she just said, well, as long as I have a good relationship with the girls, that's all she cares about. She's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much eliminated herself from that whole equation. So right now, if that were to happen, where we could sit, my ex-wife and I could sit down and talk about that, then yeah, that'd be good because I, could save up, my pennies and,
Mm-hmm.
visit them from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly, even, again with working things out, with the ex-wife and her new husband, maybe the girls could come out here and visit me, but I don't know, how that would really work since, the visits have to be supervised. So it seems more like I would have to go to them. And, with limited funds, I mean, I could, like I said, save and, maybe once or twice a year go and visit them in North Carolina. And, yeah, that would be good. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's the coming back. I mean, if I'm there for a week, 2 weeks, I'm sure it'd be wonderful. It'd be, But
But you're
what do I
already
do when I
there.
come back, though? When I'm back here? And yeah, I just think right now it's a great idea. I'm open to that, but at the
Uh-huh.
same time, I'm considering, but when I get back, now what am I going to do? And again, you know, I tried, I promised myself I wouldn't go back to drinking or anything like that. So, but I don't know because it's just going to be me, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I don't know.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that you're open to talking with your ex-wife to try to work out a custody visitation schedule, but you're also worried about when you come back here to Arizona how you're going to feel emotionally and your
Yeah,
feelings about that because your daughters are going to be so far away. So,
right, and that's something that if I have to take this medication
mhm.
because of the so-called bipolar condition, I know there's going to come a time to where I'm just going to say, well, why am I doing this? Because if I can only see him once, I think that I need to be able to wrap my head around that and then deal with it. But until that really happens, until I can see them and
Mhm.
we have the first visit, then I can be dealing more in absolutes. When I come back, then I know more or less exactly how I'm going to feel. I know I'm going to be hurt when I have to leave, and that will probably come at the airport. You know,
Uh-huh.
be a sad time, but you know I'm open to it. But like I said, this is just a suggestion. What's to say that my ex-wife says no? Once once they're gone, then that's it. And again, what's left for me? What's left for me? you know, I admit that like I said earlier on,
Mhm.
that there's a bunch of mistakes that were made, and it's
Okay.
mainly my fault. I can accept that, but but we're trying to make it better. We can't dwell in the past. People always say don't live in the past. So all that's history. So I'm trying to say, okay, going forward, and her not bringing my ex-wife, being her, not bringing this up before now, really makes me wonder. It doesn't make me feel hopeful that she's gonna say, oh yeah, yeah, why don't you just come and visit? That because again, it could be very uncomfortable, and then I don't want to put her in a difficult position with her new man, because I don't know, because he's going to have a say so in it, and though I feel he shouldn't, because husband and wife stuff is husband and wife stuff. This is family stuff now with my girls, and but then that's going to cause even more. That's going to cause even more problems.
Okay, well, I do hear that you are concerned about a lot of, different factors. So, I want to ask you a question. What would it, in your perfect, scenario, what would it look like, having a visiting schedule with your girls?
That would be wonderful. The thing that troubles me the most is just from the financial side. For me to be able to get there to North Carolina, because I don't make a whole lot of money, and I don't have a whole lot in savings, But like I said, once maybe twice a year, I could make that trip, and so
that sounds feasible.
Yeah, if my ex-wife even wants to do that.
Well, are you open to broaching this topic with your ex-wife?
Yeah, because at this point, I'm thinking I want to be able to see my girls, and I believe that she sees I can, that the girls and I have a good relationship going. I don't think she'd want to disrupt that, but I can't speak for her. And that's why with her not, bringing this visitation up before now, even after they leave, it just makes me think that she's not that open to that. But again, we never know unless we ask her. But sometimes she can be real vindictive, and this would be a perfect tool for her to use as leverage against me.
Okay, well, I do definitely hear what you're saying. It is important also not, to make assumptions, because you guys haven't really spoken specifically on this topic. Yeah, I know that you are concerned because their departure date is coming up within the coming weeks. So I do think it is important and imperative that you guys do have this conversation, so something can be, somewhat set, or in place before they do leave.
Okay.
So do you think maybe the next time you go visit your girls that you and your wife would maybe, speak about the topic?
Yeah, because it seems that, I'm going to have to be the one to bring it up, and I, in spite of the differences my ex-wife and I have had in the past, I need to initiate, because she hasn't, and you're right, I shouldn't have, assumed that she wasn't, receptive or even thought that it might be a good idea. I just need to come out and ask her, and then I'll know. And then I'll know for sure, just how she feels about it. I pray that she would, say, well, yeah, and I'm sure she's going to ask me, well, when. But since they're going to be leaving here in the next couple of weeks, I'm saying, well, probably, closer in the fall, since it's already April, so maybe I could spend not so much Thanksgiving, because I don't think that'd be appropriate, but maybe like Labor Day. I'd really have to pinch some pennies, but maybe that Labor Day weekend in September would be good because the other two major holidays, being Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's I just don't want to be a third wheel there. I don't want to disrupt. It'll be their first Thanksgiving, and and then that's kind of special as well. So we'll see. But I'll next time we do get together, I'll bring it up to her, and prayerfully she will, say agree to at least let's try that.
Okay.
I want to jump the gun at all with any of it, so I'll just play it by ear after that to see what she says, and then if she does say yeah, then okay. Then it's on me just to get the money together. That's all I'll be able to do at that point.
And if you would like to, I do have some resources for financial planning and budgeting. There are classes, or I do have online materials if you were not able to make it to classes. I can give you that, when we're done with our session, if you would like that.
Okay. Is there any organizations that maybe would be able to kind of help me with the ticket, and then just in the event that I can't come up with the airfare to get there?
I'm not sure that there are any organizations that do that specifically, but like I said, I do know that there are financial and budgeting classes. There's also resources available online,
Okay.
that like savings plans. Like there's one called like $1 a day plan, or
Okay.
the penny plan.
Okay.
And like I said, I can give you those resources. I have them printed out right after our session. If you would like to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I'd like to explore that
Okay.
and see.
Yeah,
Maybe there's something within these different methods, saving methods, to ensure that I'll have the airfare come September, which is a short 4 months away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. And I'm glad
I
that
appreciate you mentioning that.
Oh, that's no
'Cause I
problem.
didn't know.
Forrest.
I didn't know that was it. I mean, I just got so much going on in my head right now. I'm trying not to be depressed, but it's tough. It's tough. My babies are leaving, and that I'm not going to be able to see them as often as I've been seeing. That's a big pill to swallow. And again, maybe I have no one to blame but myself for that. But I'm not going to sit here with you in this session through a pity party. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get this stuff out. Maybe if I hear myself saying it, that I can come up with some, reasoning to try and keep myself on track. And I still don't know about the medication. I'm pretty depressed about that. Because like I said, what will I be taking it for? It's not like it's giving me peace of mind, so to speak, because my babies are going to be gone.
Yeah, and I know that's definitely very emotionally upsetting for you that that your daughters are going to be gone. But like you had just mentioned, you're thinking about seeing them, in the next few months, in September, and what would it look like to you if you weren't on your medication when you did go see them?
Well, I think with that, I would, to go see them, I definitely want to be on the medication, because I want them to be able to see me as they've been seeing me. What I'm worried about is after I leave, after I get on the plane coming back, and not really knowing when the next time I am going to see him. I don't know. It's
Yeah, and
It's tough. It's tough.
It's definitely, a difficult situation. But like you have mentioned, earlier that things have been getting better for you. Your relationship with your daughters has improved. Even you and your wife are definitely a lot more amicable than, at the beginning.
That's true.
You know,
That is true.
and I see those as great improvements for you.
Okay.
Your
Baby steps.
yeah, small steps. We
yeah.
all get there. And I do notice that, even though you do have, a few other roommates, your living situation seems to be going well. Your
Yeah.
employment is steady.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I have to, again, just take, like I said, the baby steps with that,
Mm-hmm.
with the entire situation, because the roommates, it makes it easier since I don't have the financially, it's a whole lot easier, and I'm trying to keep that because I'm worried about financially. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be my biggest, you know, issue next to not being able to see them, because at least in spite of all that has transpired, I've been able to at least see them
Yes.
on a fairly regular basis when they're not all the way across the country on the other coast, and I'm out here in this desert, you know. But,
Mm-hmm.
again, I think that, I hope that things, work out. I hope my ex-wife is okay with the September visit, because again, like I said before, I don't think it'd be appropriate to go for Thanksgiving. Definitely not go for Christmas or bring in the New Year. I don't think that would be,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
taken in the best, light. So we'll see. We'll see. Do you have any other suggestions that? I mean, what would you do if you were in this situation?
Well, I honestly can't speak to that because I have um, a little bit of self-disclosure. Haven't been in your shoes, so I can't speak to your
Okay.
situation.
Okay.
Um, but like I said, I would advise you and your ex-wife to have that conversation, and I think that would definitely give you a lot of peace of mind, because right now there's kind of a lot of question marks, surrounding this big topic under
Mm-hmm.
the umbrella of them moving to North Carolina. So I
Mm-hmm.
think once you guys have that conversation, a lot of those check marks will be, those answers. There, you will have answers,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you'll be able to go from there.
All
With
right.
the depending on how those answers, are delivered, and we still have following sessions. Within the coming weeks past, your daughter's leaving, so we can definitely talk about your feelings at that point in time as well, on a continual basis.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
like I said, I have seen a lot of improvements, in our short, time, together. So I would definitely advise that you stay on your medication, because I haven't heard you say anything about that how it makes you feel, if it makes you feel bad physically or mentally, or if you're having any side effects with the
Yeah.
medication.
It's. I think mentally, I guess, with the strength, that it's set at right now. I just I just kind of feel empty. I kind of don't think about getting angry as quickly, so it kind of retards that.
Okay, so
But
it has a little bit of self-regulate, helps you
right,
self-regulate.
right, keeps me calmer. Um, Physically, it's just pills, and that's why I'm at a point to where I say, well, if I stop taking it, since it really hasn't affected me physically to date, that's, it's just, I don't know how far I would, what's a good word, slip. slip.
Okay.
I don't know how far I would, slip into the abyss
Well,
if I don't. And, at the same time, I think, like I said, with my daughter's leaving is the primary thing. And that's what I'm really, depressed about. Maybe I could, go back to my primary care physician and maybe get something to help me to deal with depression, because I know I'm going to be depressed. It'll be beyond sad. I'm going to be depressed. Once they do leave, and the days, immediately following. I can't speak too much more in the future
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, because those days haven't arrived yet. But I know, maybe I can get something to. And one thing that's been disrupted is my sleep. Maybe I can get something to help me sleep. Prescription level sleep aid instead of just trying to get, Tylenol PM and all that crap. You know.
Okay, well, I do understand that you are going to be feeling, sad and, down in the days and after they leave. But I don't want you to presume that you're going to need, strong depression medication because, you haven't had to have that thus far, and you have, been through a lot. You've made
Yeah.
tremendous progress, within, the eyes of the legal system and the eyes of your ex-wife, and, even in the eyes of your girls. Like I said, I've seen a lot of improvement and growth with you, and that speaks to your inner strength and your resilience. So I don't want you to jump the gun and, assume that you're going to need
Okay.
the medication. I mean, we can, take it as it comes.
Yeah.
So
Take it as it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, maybe I was just more the emotion talking about the depression and all that, but I do feel, because at least while they were here in this state and I could see them, my sleep habits have been okay,
Okay.
So I still might need to see my primary care physician just to get, something, a sleep aid at the prescription level to help me to continue to sleep, because, again, I don't want to have to deal with that pain. And like I said, with taking my bipolar medication, mentally it keeps me calmer. But I know this is, once they're gone, that's going to have an effect on me. It's not like that I'll get the same result as I've been getting, up to this point. And if I can sleep, then perhaps I won't think of, if I can just kind of sleep through it until maybe I can get myself mentally strong enough again. Just just let me sleep, wake up, and try and get through, at the office, working at the office, and
Mm-hmm.
coming home. And because, like I said, it's gonna hurt like hell. Excuse my language, but it's that I know, and I'm gonna need something to curb that. And I don't think the bipolar meds are gonna do that. That's why I think that was the point I was really trying to make, that I'm gonna need something else to get me through, at least initially. I might not have to stay on it, but something just to, like I said, sleeping might be the best way. Maybe I'll even take a few days off after they leave, because I've got vacation time.
Okay. I mean, and I know there is a lot to process. And I mean, that might be a good idea, maybe just to take, a couple of days off to, just decompress and, you know, deal, with your emotions, at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we do have hotline numbers, that I, do have readily available that you can call that
Oh,
are 24 hours.
I'd like to get that listing. Yeah, that'll
Okay.
help. As long as I know I can have access, because
Yeah, if you need to
yeah,
talk to somebody.
it's gonna be rough. You know, I'm not one to think gloom and doom, but I know, like I said, I know how I'm feeling right now. You know, and
Hmm.
I'm thinking, yeah, if there's someone I can talk to or reach out to, maybe that will, you know, aid as well. Maybe I won't even have to take any other medication. You know, because I'm not
Right.
that big on taking pills anyway. But yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, and of course, if you don't need them, it's good not to,
That's it's
take
true.
them.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Like I said,
Um,
why add another narcotic into my system if I can just have someone to talk to, and that'll help.
yeah,
That'll
because
really help.
we do have, like I said, we have resources to crisis lines or just to hotlines, for various topics, and they're all 24 hours, even on holidays. So if
Okay.
you find yourself, at an odd time of the day or night, and you need to talk to somebody, and we don't have a session, coming up, then that would I think that would definitely be a great resource, for you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I
That's,
can give that to you along with the financial materials, after our session.
okay then. So you have that on hand.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I
Okay.
have it, in my office. I can
Okay.
definitely give that to you.
Okay. Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 I like that. And kind of, I don't know. It's gonna be rough, but man.
Yeah, I know it's definitely going to be tough, on you, but like I said, look at how far that you've come, and also, you still would. I know you were expressing the need to have that conversation with your ex-wife, so I think a lot of boxes, will be
Right.
checked once that conversation is had,
Right. Right.
and you can, like I said, move forward from there, after that conversation happens, and like I said, I know you're going to be seeing them within the next couple of days, so that's
Yes.
coming up.
It is something to look forward to. It is something to look forward to. I just hope that she's receptive, to the idea.
Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like you guys have been working, pretty amicably, this entire time, after the divorce. So, I think that
Mm.
you know you guys can definitely communicate, in a positive manner and come up with something that you guys are both satisfied with, and that's honestly going to be best for the girls because I
Yeah,
know,
'cause
it's definitely all about your
them.
children.
Yeah, it's all about them anyway. So
Hmm.
it's sad that she and I couldn't work it out, but stuff happens.
Yeah, it's definitely, life happens, and but,
Right,
I'm
right,
glad, you have to remember all the, good that you've done, for your girls, and how much that relationship has grown and blossomed, and will, definitely continue to
honestly,
blossom,
right, right.
you know,
You know,
even despite the geographical distance.
okay,
And I also want you to remember that, we do have the luxuries of technology. So, um, if there, we have computers and FaceTime
oh, pardon me.
mhm,
Mm.
and other, forms, of communication when you can't see them, in person.
FaceTime. Okay, yeah, I kind of heard about that.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, do you have access to the internet and or a computer?
I can. I was thinking about purchasing one, but like I said, then my funds are still kind of limited. But I have a friend. One of my roommates here has a friend who's very computer literate,
Okay.
and so he kind of builds them. So I think he might be able to find me something, and um, maybe I can talk him into, maybe for the first couple of months, to where I can have the internet installed. Or does this stuff work off of Wi-Fi? Well, Wi-Fi is still the
Hmm.
internet as well.
Yes.
maybe I can, work something out. You know, maybe even pick up a second job, to help with the cost of that. But yeah, I think I
Those
can.
are options.
Yeah,
And
think I
then
can
there's
work
also
that out.
secondhand stores,
Yeah,
if you
find some equipment because
find one at a lesser cost.
right. It's just I think the monthly service. I don't think the equipment will really be that big of an issue. It's the fact to get the paying Cox, yeah, for
Oh,
their
okay.
internet. Yeah, the
The monthly
service
fees.
charge. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's what maybe I can work something out with them and they can cover me for a couple of months. And then if I can find a second job or get in a little side hustle, I can legal, of course.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Be able to swing the Cox fees for the
Okay.
internet. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad
okay.
you're coming up with positive ideas that you can set into motion.
Mm-hmm.
And I am glad that we did get to speak about you're wanting to come off the medication and this
Right. Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
circumstance with your daughters moving across country with their mom and their stepfather.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we do have a few more meetings before the termination of services. So, like I said, we can definitely talk and speak about your feelings about the
Okay.
situation and do progress updates about your job and how just basically how your life is going in the coming
Okay.
weeks.
Okay.
So, how do you feel now versus at the beginning of our session?
Well, I have hope now,
Okay.
and I think that's a big step because I was feeling like nothing's gonna come out right, but you've given me some ideas and you can provide me with some of these resources, and I can talk to my roommate's friend about getting the computer and getting the internet installed. So yeah, I feel a little bit better.
Forrest.
Yeah,
Very glad.
it just might work out.
Yeah,
Just
definitely
might.
have positive
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Put positive thoughts out into the
I'm
universe.
trying, Stephanie. I really am. But well,
Yeah.
I hope so.
Okay, Forrest.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad that we got to meet today. Same time next week.
Same time next week.
Okay.
Okay then. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
No problem, Forrest. And let me get you those resources before you go.
Okay.
And these have the financial literacy
Uh-huh.
and budget classes and times, as well as some internet website resources that you can look up.
Okay.
Direct links.
Okay. Very good. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Stephanie.
No problem, Forrest.
Okay.